Beep beep, what is up ninjas? My name is Sam World. I hope you guys are having a great day. Today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to get your bass lines to sound more interesting by very simply just teaching you guys MIDI techniques that you can implement right now on some of your tracks. Now, all of these techniques I'm going to show you guys might not work for a genre, or they might if you put a little bit of work into it, but it's your job as a producer to get what you want, get what you like, incorporate what you want, and get your track to come to life. And hopefully these MIDI techniques can help you guys out. Now guys, at the end of July we are releasing a Dirty Bird styled sound bank for you guys for Silent One with a total of 150 sounds. So make sure that if you're into making house music, techno, that you check it out guys. And with that being said, let's get straight into this video. Tip number one guys is to avoid the Savage sidechain or avoid the deadmau5 sidechain. What I mean by this is very simple. We all know that when the kick and the bass hit together, when they're playing together, they're never gonna get along. So we always prefer to have the kick punch through rather than the bass cover the kick. And sometimes that can destroy the power of the bass line. But there's a simple way to avoid this, and it's just to avoid that first beat, the second, the third, or the fourth when the kick hits. And it's a very simple technique to do, just like this.
Alright guys, so here we are inside of Ableton. Who knows the name of that song? If you do, you're a true OG, man. You like the same kind of music I do. Alright guys, so what I was talking about pretty simply is that whenever we have the kick and the bass playing, we know we have to do the sidechain of death. So you guys know we're going to be cutting that much. Usually the sidechain will last as long as the kick, so that's one of the bad things about having a big kick and a big bass at the same time. But we can simply avoid this simply by just playing here rather than going here. Now, this will definitely give you a different vibe than this. So it's going to be up to you to decide, but if we make a bass like this, you got to keep in mind that everything else has to follow along. So let's make a bass line like so. We'll just have... Alright, so that's our bass. So if we have that sidechain that we have right now, guys, you can see right now, let's do it a little bit hard. So what can we do to make this? Well, simple tip, we're just gonna drag this across like that. Okay. Now the cool thing about this technique is the fact that usually when we play or we have a hella hardcore deadmau5 sidechain, you're not even gonna hear this part of the bass either way. So when we kind of move it a bit to the right like that, we're avoiding the initial hit of that sidechain, which is this. Now, of course, the question arises, why don't you just don't do that, Sen, if that's what you don't want? Well, the thing is, again, we're also avoiding that massive ass fucking kick. Imagine that kick coming down and almost squishing you. Well, you want to avoid it a bit, so you move to the right a bit and you avoid being crushed to death. And that's the idea of this tip. Very simple. Instead of having, you know, make it this note shorter, which is one of the tips that's coming up. You can even do it, you know, maybe. Nah, that sounds a bit too young. So you can see we avoid that. And the cool thing about this technique is that when we start to have bass lines that are a lot more punchier, that have that donk, then this technique really comes into play really, really well. So don't be afraid to do this, guys. It's totally right. I'm here to tell you that you are right if you've been doing this, and don't worry. And this also adds a little bit of swing to that bass line.
Tip number two guys is going to be the length of your MIDI notes in that bass. What you want to do is you want to find the right spot to put them. If you have lower MIDI notes, you're going to get more of a do rather than a do. So you want to play around with the length of the MIDI notes to get a more swaggish kind of vibe. Have the MIDI notes not be the same length on all the hits of the bass, or you know, do it strategically where you have very low length MIDI notes to give a bit more of a more swingy vibe, more harder vibe if you want to say. But this is how we do this simple technique.
Now guys, the length of the MIDI notes is very, very important. A lot of the times, you know, you just saw that I was just doing a lot of this. But the thing about this again is that if you implement little different MIDI note changes, you can make something as simple as that just sound a little bit more interesting. You know, let's make it even shorter. So you can kind of see what's happening there. This one's not even. So you can see just this little change here. It gives you a lot more swing. It gives you a lot more grooviness. If you were in the 80s, you'd be that guy with the afro, the white man with the afro, fucking swag. You know, it's all what it's about. you guys get the idea on this one. Very simple to implement, but the change of the notes is it's everything, guys.
Tip number 3, guys, is very simple. It's gonna be a glide, adding glides here and there into your bass line, or knowing when to do it. Now, you can easily implement glides, guys, as long as the bass you're using has been programmed to have mono legato in it. And it's a very simple thing, as I'm gonna show you on how to do. This technique is used a lot in hip hop, it's used in future bounce, and I'm sure you guys can find different ways to use it in different genres. So this is how it's gonna sound like.
All right, guys, so glides are very easy to implement, and you want to make sure that when you have your bass, you have that mono legato set up on the bottom right. N mode will stand for normal, S will slide, and you have to overlap notes, S you don't. But we're going to go into N mode, which is the mode that most people are going to be using. So let's make a simple bass here, you know, and we're going to do something like this where it sounds a bit. All right, so we can agree that's a very What's up, girl? Let me get into you, girl. Bam. All right, guys, so very simply here, what we want to do is just add this glide so it sounds a little bit more smoother, and it's a very simple technique to implement. Now, you might be going like, yo, Sam, fuck that, you know, why don't you just leave it down here? Well, the thing is that this is called the Bouncy Technique, or that's what I call it, and they use it a lot in future bounce to give it a bit of this jumping up effect. And if you want to use it, it's super useful. Hip hop uses it as well with the 808s. But what we want to do, if you notice right there, it's, yeah, so I could leave this up, but I still want to have that high G, you know, check it out. You can do a lot with that. Just having this, having that slide legato mode, you can do a lot of, you know, doing like kind of like a rolling basis. Let's do it more like it. But this is a simple technique that you can implement with mono legato, guys, and I'm excited for this one because honestly that sounds fucking dope. But you guys get the idea there. Adding mono legatos to really do that. Now, you don't have to do this, but, you know, you don't have to do it like we just did. You can easily just have what we had before, where you had this kind of going. And you can also go to different notes. It doesn't have to be an octave up. You can go to, let's say, here. But it's all going to be depending on what you want. But now you know this little tip, guys, to make your bass lines better. And I hope that you guys can use it in further productions when it arises.
Tip number 4, guys, to get more interesting bass lines is to use a little bit of music theory. Now, this is a very useful tip for those of you guys that are making these sort of melodic bass lines, or like Dirty Bird style. We're doing a lot of like do-do-do-do-do. And let's say you want to switch it up or add a bit of variation. You can use the harmonic counterpart of whatever note you're playing on at that moment that you want to change. Let's say you're playing a G and you're in the G minor scale. You can use the E flat, you can use the D, you can use the B flat as notes that you can go to as a guide. Now, I'm going to show you how it works inside of Ableton, because it's going to be a lot simpler for me to explain it to you.
Alright, guys, so this technique is very simple when it comes to harmonics. So let's say I'm playing a G. I'm on the G minor scale, okay? I can easily go to notes 2 up or 2 down. Now, what I mean by that is that you're going to count 2 notes up or 2 notes down, and you're going to count the notes in the scale. Very important. So G, 1, 2, I can play the A sharp. 1, 2, I can play the D sharp. G, 1, 2 down, I can play the D sharp. 1, 2 down, I can play a C. Knowing that, I can get various harmonic counterparts of the G, and a lot of the times the transition between those notes is going to sound a lot more smoother than going from other different notes that aren't part of the scale. Now, of course, there's always going to be buts and ifs in it. It's not 100% accurate because sometimes some of the notes we pick might not work, but it's a good way to really get into the vibe of things. So let's go G, A sharp. We'll add another note, and we'll go down to the harmonic counterpart of that A sharp, which could be a D, could be that G, or it could be a D sharp. And then maybe here back to a G. And then here we're going to avoid that rule because, again, you don't have to use it the whole time. Now here we're going to add a variation by going to harmonic counterpart of G, which is the A sharp. I'm gonna add a variation by going down to the G on this guy, and I'm gonna leave this guy's the same. So it glues these two together. So I like this. And then here, A sharp, maybe a G sharp. And then here, instead of D sharp, maybe we can just leave it at the G. Or again, break the rule and go. And then here, we're just gonna move this down. Add a melodic variation here. We can go maybe with the D. Or let's try a low D sharp. Now here we have the Fisher MIDI, guys, and very simply we can do this. And we can easily add a variation just by switching this from A sharp to a G, or we can even try D sharp. Now the problem here is that if I go with D sharp, it's too far apart, as you guys can see. The A sharp is a lot closer, so those are things you want to look out for with this technique, but it's a very simple one, as you saw.
And finally, guys, the last tip is going to implement a little bit of sound design and a little bit of the MIDI note arrangement. So what we're going to be doing in this tip is we're going to be using less MIDI notes, so we're not going to be playing the bass line as often. It might hit maybe once in a bar or 2 times, but what we're going to be doing to kind of make up for that is going to be giving a longer release to that bass. Think of like an 808. Boom. So that's what we're going to be doing, and a lot of songs implement this. Now we're going to be using the silence technique, aka just being quiet. Let's get straight into this technique, guys, and teach you how to do it.
Alright guys, so this last final tip involves a little bit of sound design, but it's not that hard to implement. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to make sure we pick a bass or program our bass to be more of an 808. And it's very simple to do. If the sustain is up, lower it down, add decay, and add a bit of release so that when you play it, it lasts a little bit longer, okay? And we're going to get rid of this sine wave, this saw, and we're going to have that, move this to the right. So it has a bit of punch, a bit of distortion. There we go, that's what we want. And what we're going to do is simple. We're just going to add note hits, and less is more in this situation. Can't even go. Can even add a bit of melody change. Now, if you want to do more hits, of course, lower the release a bit. And now we're going to have that, and we can just easily go in and do. And it's as simple as that.
Alright guys, and these are going to be the 5 tips to get more interesting bass lines. Before you were kind of interesting, now you're going to be hella interesting. Now, if you guys have any tips on any more tricks that you guys have developed for yourself to get more interesting bass lines, leave them down in the comments below, guys. I would love to hear what you guys have to say. And with that being said, guys, this is going to be the end of the video. At the end of July, the Dirty Bird style sound mic is going to be coming out. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a couple of things, and I'll see you guys tomorrow for a brand new video, ninjas. So you guys take care, and peace out.